President Trump intensified his push for businesses to reopen in a meeting with restaurant executives at the White House on Monday, while companies across the country continue to wait on those disbursement of bailout funds. Paula Reid is at the White House and joins us with more on this. So, Paula, you've been listening to our discussion. As you know, last week the House approved $3 trillion in additional coronavirus relief. Republicans, meanwhile, have suggested waiting on passing another relief package. Where does the White House stand on increasing this money?
That's right. The White House has repeatedly said that they're just waiting to see how reopening goes before coming out with any ideas for economic relief for the nearly 36 million people who are unemployed. Of course, recent studies suggesting that 42% of those jobs, folks who have been laid off, that they aren't coming back. So just moments ago, I pressed one of the White House's top economic advisors, Larry Kudlow, on what specific economic relief measures that they were considering. Now, he named payroll tax cuts, capital gains after you sell an investment or a property. That would really only benefit you if you have investments or property. He also mentioned a possible relief for restaurateurs. So I followed up and asked specifically, what kind of relief are you offering for low-income Americans? Because a payroll tax cut only helps you if you have a job, right? Now, those are the taxes paid by employers and employees. Capital gains, as I noted, you pay that after you receive money from selling off a property or investment, and giving money to restaurateurs, but not their workers. Again, it seems that they're focused on sort of the upper end of the income spectrum and helping them with relief, when in fact it's been the lower socioeconomic folks who have been more aggressively impacted by coronavirus. And Vlad, I was pretty surprised. Larry Kudlow really didn't seem to have any specific measures, any specific policy ideas to help lower income Americans. He seemed to infer that these policies that help sort of more elite people would sort of trickle down to help other folks. And so far, it just does not appear they have a plan to address these 36 million Americans who are unemployed and those whose jobs may not come back.
So earlier, Paul, we were talking to Nancy about the president's surprise announcement that he's taking this anti-malaria drug, hydroxychloroquine, to protect himself from the coronavirus. Everyone knows he's been sort of touting this drug for a while now. There are no studies to indicate that the drug is helpful once you have the illness, and there are definitely no studies indicating that it can prevent you from getting the coronavirus. Do we know anything about how the president came to this decision and why he's taking the drug?
Well, Anne-Marie, as you noted, the president has embraced this drug publicly, and as a result, it has become a political flashpoint. Now, scientists continue to study it, but as of now, as you noted, there is no evidence that it will protect you, and there is an FDA warning for folks who actually have COVID that there could be some symptoms that could potentially even be deadly. Now, the president's attorney, not his attorney, his physician, released a very carefully worded letter last night. It does not say anything about the specifics of his regimen, but it did say that the two men discussed hydroxychloroquine and that they decided that the benefits outweighed the risks. Now, there were a lot of questions about why this memo was so vague, why it didn't talk about azithromycin or zinc, other things that the president said he was taking, and why it didn't specifically say he is indeed taking hydroxychloroquine. Remember, he brought this up as he was being pressed by reporters about a series of unfavorable stories, and there were some questions about whether this was just meant to be a distraction. A short time ago, the press secretary here at the White House, she came out and she confirmed that the president is indeed taking this. We pressed her on why so many of the statements so far coming out of the White House had been vague, why no one had been able to come out and just outright confirm the president's statements. She just said that the physician's memo, the White House physician's memo, was just meant to concur on the analysis and show that the doctor agreed with the analysis for the president to take this controversial drug.
So, Paula, are you hearing, and I saw that, the letter that was released, and you pointed out in an email to the correspondents and to our editorial staff that it did not indicate that that doctor had prescribed hydroxychloroquine, and many other doctors have said, look, that would be, prescribing a drug like that for the purposes of which the president says he is taking it would not be ideal. And so I'm wondering, are you hearing that there are other preventative practices that the president or others around him are taking?
Well, the ones that we can see most easily, right, are personal protective equipment or social distancing. We see the president still does not engage in those. He does not wear a mask. He does not consistently social distance. Even those around him, his closest staff, they've only really been practicing any kind of social distancing or occasionally wearing masks in the past 10 days. So here at the White House, they really just are not taking a lot of preventative measures to stem the spread of this virus, which we know we've had at least 2 positive cases here in the West Wing. If you've ever been in there, it's a pretty cramped space. It's very tight quarters. The president is in and out of meetings with his staff all day long. And basically, from what we can see, the president does not appear to be using any of the proven protective methods.
Paula, before we let you go, I got to ask you about the president's threat to permanently cut funding to the World Health Organization. The timing aside, because we are in the middle of a pandemic, do we know why he's come to that conclusion? Did something else happen recently that sort of prompted him to up the ante here?
That's right. Well, so far, the president has really sent out mixed messages about the responsibility that China holds for this pandemic. At first, he supported them. He said they were doing a great job. He appreciated their transparency. But more recently, he's trying to pin more blame on China and the World Health Organization for its reliance on information coming out of China. Now, this is pretty much red meat for the president's base, suggesting that a large international organization where we give an enormous amount of money, that they should be cut off from funding, or that they may be to blame. That's something that may sell well with a lot of his supporters. So as you heard last night, he threatened to permanently halt U.S. funding and even reconsider our country's membership if the World Health Organization did not enact certain reforms. And at this point, it's just not clear if the president is posturing here to earn some points with his base to deflect responsibility for how this has spread, particularly in the U.S., or if he's serious about this.
All right. Paula Reid, thank you so much.